I've decided to give a bit more form to my channel by posting one or two main videos at weekends and probably just one response to the best or the most relevant comments that I've received in between. So the following is a response to Bryn6000, whose comments on my video, Why Christianity Still Matters, touched on the conflict in Gaza, asking why so few Christians were denouncing Israel's genocide against Palestinians there. You can get the gist of his comment from my response to it. Thanks again for your comments. Okay, so firstly, your serious point about the South African complaint to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, charging Israel with committing genocide in Gaza, is of a different order to your claim that Israel is a Zionist settler colonial entity. That's a quote. Your first point pertains to international law on genocide. Your second is a purely political one that I don't in any way agree with. Your argument, which is contained in the phrase you've used, depends entirely on the timescale you're using. It's not the one I use, and so I don't share your perception of it. But even if I did, that still wouldn't justify the openly genocidal struggle of Palestinians and other Arabs over the last 100 years to slaughter Israeli Jews en masse, and, this is another quote by Arab leaders, drive them back into the sea. This sentiment has been put into practice frequently, including on October the 7th, 2023, leaving Israeli Jews in no doubt as to the character of their Palestinian enemy and its supporters. These supporters now include a multitude of mostly young, progressive left liberals in the West who inanely chant genocidal slogans against Israeli Jews, such as, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," or "By any means necessary," that one formulated pretty much straight after October the 7th. These slogans, not being so different in tone to the "Jews are our dogs" banners that Arab protesters carried in Jerusalem in the 1920s before using their machetes on Jewish shopkeepers. The first of today's slogans is a call for violent eradication of the State of Israel, which, when chanted after the Palestinian indiscriminate slaughter of Israeli Jews on October the 7th, and at the same time as the second slogan, "By any means necessary," clearly intends to use the methods of October the 7th to accomplish the eradication, that is to say, to commit a second genocide against the Jewish people. I have nothing but contempt for this. But back to your first point. The modern Jewish state came into existence as a consequence of Jewish migration into Palestine in flight from very serious anti-Jewish persecution, firstly in Eastern Europe and Russia in the 19th century, and later in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Survivors of the Holocaust came later. Before carrying on, I should just point out that right from the beginning, there was a sizable Jewish minority resident in Palestine, mainly in Jerusalem. I think around about 20,000 or so. And so, given that the numbers at the beginning of the migration, the Jewish, the Zionist migration, were really very low, basically they weren't going to a land with no Jews in it. They were going to a place where a community of Jews already were resident, and essentially would be, I'm saying this with criticisms that I'm not expressing, but on the whole, they would consider it at least to be safe to be in or around that existing Jewish community. So they didn't just come out of the blue and put a pin in the map and say, "Oh, right, let's go there." Whether there aren't even any Jews at all. That's not true. There was a Jewish community which they joined, and that was right from the beginning. Of course, as each successive wave of migrants came, that community had grown bigger and bigger and bigger, and so it had more magnetism, if you like, drawing them to that place, as opposed to America, where 1.5 million Jews migrated for basically exactly the same reason. At the beginning of this period, Palestine was governed by the Turkish Empire. It became Britain's responsibility after Turkey's effective defeat at the end of World War I. When the Turks governed the area, they governed it as South Syria, and the Arabic residents of Palestine neither had nor claimed any specifically Palestinian national identity. Their national ambitions developed alongside and very much in response to immigrant Jews' national ambitions led by the Zionist movement. The name Jewish nationalism had given itself in Europe, having given up hope of ever enjoying lasting security as a people in Christian lands. All Jewish immigrants in Palestine went there with the permission of either the Turkish or British authorities, and until the war in 1947-8 lived in or on properties legally purchased. In this respect, they did not settle on other people's lands. Their growing numbers did, however, alter the political and religious character of Palestine, which was previously and traditionally dominated by Arab Muslims, in continuity with the Islamic conquering of Palestine before the Crusades. It's impossible to separate this Islamic domination of Jews and Christians in Islamic lands from the economic and political aspects of the conflict in Palestine. And to me, it's ludicrous to treat the Muslims of Palestine as historic victims of Jewish colonialism. You have to be historically negligent or opportunistic to believe this, which unfortunately most of today's liberal left activists are on this issue, and placing our nation and culture in great danger because of it. In the short term, history has been unfair to Palestinian Arabs. In the longer term, what's gone around has come around, and the Jewish national memory is longer than the Muslim Arab one. I don't believe Palestinians want either peace or justice. They want Islamic dominance over Palestine and its people. Israel will fight to the bitter end if that's what it comes down to. I want peace. Do you? As to the ICJ and the genocide charges, all you're saying is that in your opinion the South African case against Israel is damning. The ICJ itself has only gone so far as allowing that their case is plausible and should go ahead. It has not found Israel guilty of committing genocide. It has, in view of the plausibility of the charge against Israel, ordered Israel to take precautions to avoid its forces or authorities committing genocidal acts. It has not ordered a general ceasefire in her conflict with Gaza. In respect of the demands the ICJ did make of Israel in this conflict, I will only repeat what I said in an earlier comment. Had similar restrictions been placed on the Allies in World War II, I don't think we could have defeated Japan or Germany without huge loss of our own forces' lives. And as just as a footnote to that, the Allied countries have not retrospectively been charged by the International Court of Justice of committing genocide against Germans or the Japanese in the Second World War, despite the fact that we absolutely carpet bombed their cities, including all of the residential areas. It was a situation of total war in which the workforce was completely integrated into the war effort. You could not make a separation between civilians and combatants in the Second World War. And in the situation in Gaza, because the Gazan people willingly elected an openly terrorist organization as their government, an organization which had genocidal intent written into its charter, that basically means that the Gazan Palestinians were complicit in acting as human shields for the Hamas organization and others, who definitely had as October the 7th proved, had a genocidal intent towards Israel. It's a different reason to why the Allied countries killed so many German and Japanese civilians. It is a different reason, but the end result is essentially the same. If you opt to be a human shield for a genocidal terrorist organization, you're going to get killed. You're bound to get killed because you cannot expect a country to not defend itself just because you are standing in the way. To me, that's just absolutely obvious, and it ought to be obvious to any decent person. But I no longer believe that Western left liberals, I don't believe they are decent. I believe they're completely dominated by political ideology, and as a consequence have lost their human decency. They're actually moral idealists, not decent people, and there's a huge difference between the two things.